So class, what do you see in the picture? I guess they are students, right? Maybe they're having difficulty in answering the exam or questionnaire based on their facial expression. But what do you think is the reason that they are having difficulty in answering the exam or questionnaire? Maybe they didn't know the lesson at all, or perhaps they are not well prepared. And because of that, I have a quote here in connection of this. It states that formative assessment is tasting the soup, while summative assessment is serving the soup. So take note the red sentence or the red word that is formative assessment. So for today's lesson, we will only focus on the formative assessment, which is chapter 9. So here are the contents of our today's lesson. First, we have techniques for formative assessment. Second, games for formative assessment. Third, self-assessment in formative assessment. Fourth, scoring rubrics in formative assessment. And lastly, additional formative assessment strategies. So what is our learning outcomes? At the end of the chapter, the student should be able to cite appropriate techniques and tools for formative assessment. Second, use appropriate techniques and tools for formative assessment. Third, explain how scoring rubrics can facilitate formative assessment. And lastly, reason why out self-assessment is an important feature of formative assessment. So to start off, let's talk about the techniques for formative assessment. Here, it states that techniques given by Fisher and Frey of 2007 that teachers can use while teaching to check on students' understanding. So we have 3 techniques for formative assessment. So first we have number 1, response card. So response card, these are the pre-printed or write-on cards or pre-printed cards that have responses of them such as yes or no. It is a write-on cards that allows students to indicate their responses in real time. So do you have any idea what is the response card looks like? So this is an example of a response cards. So as you can see, they have different colors, they have different numbers, which indicates that it motivates the students, or the main reason is to motivate the students to caught their attention while listening or discussing on your lesson or your topic while teaching. Second, we have hand signals. So hand signals and examples are thumbs up, means I understand and can explain it, or also thumb sideways, means I'm not completely sure about, and also thumbs down, means I do not understand. So these are examples of common hand signals used in the classroom management. So we have tissue, which is signed as this. Question, like full hands. It's sometimes, diba, ginayuse nato na siya if natay questions sa ato ang teacher. So, garis tag hands. Third, pencil. So, this is the sign of pencil. Ready, drink, bathroom, not ready, and help. So, these are the common use hand signals in the classroom. And lastly, our third techniques is games. So games are game-based learning, and gamified instruction are 2 emerging teaching learning practices to drive learning. Game-based learning makes use of a game of any kind to realize learning outcome. So, what are the common games used in the classroom? So, dagan kitag games nga pwede nato magamit sa classroom for motivation sa students nato. For example, here in the picture, as you can see, the students are enjoying nga ang the students na-enjoy gud siya nga magpilit-pilit og colors sa ilahang blackboard, which indicates na maybe ang activity sa teacher is identifying colors. Next picture side sa right side, which is ang teacher is maybe nagtudlo siya art sa mga bata, which is nakita gid nato nga nag-enjoy gid ang mga bata based on their facial expression. And because of that, aside sa ma-interested ang mga bata, pwede po nato ni siya magamit nga another example nga makuha nato or ma-develop nila ang ilahang skills, which is pwede magamit sa in the near future. So, as early as of now, na-practice na nila ang ilahang skills. For example, sa arts, if maayo ang bata sa colors or drawing, even bata pa, makita na gid nato nga nay potential ang bata and to further develop pa in the future. So these are the examples of the techniques on formative assessment.
So Socrative is an interactive web-based student response system, also available through iOS, Android, or Chrome apps that can help teachers spark conversation and learning through user-created tools and quizzes. So when we say Socrative, it also can be used to assess how well the teachers understand the subject, or this allows teachers to pre-assess the students, that which can make for more targeted learning planning, that teachers can see student responses in real time. So also gives you just that for the classroom or office, also an efficient way to monitor and evaluate learning that saves time for educators while delivering fun, engaging interactions for the learners. So I prepared a video here on how to use Socrative app. So let's watch this video.
Meet Socrative by Mastery Connect, your tool for fun and effective formative assessment. Socrative enables you to engage and assess students on any device and operating system during class. All the activities visualize student answers in real time and provides detailed reports for afterwards. Directly from your teacher dashboard, you can launch all types of assessments, start a quiz, do a quick question or polling activity, play a fun space race game, or do an out-of-the-door exit ticket. Quick questions are perfect for no-prep activities. As students respond, the teacher can see in real time what the students are thinking, have a discussion of the results, or ask more quick questions. It's your choice. You can create your own assessments or share assessments with your colleagues and other Socrative users around the world. If you'd like, you can tag it with a Common Core or state standard. As students take the quiz, you'll see their graded responses populate your live results table. Each column shows how the whole class is performing on that question. You can see which questions you need to go over with the class or decide how to group students for review based on their results. Run Your Quiz is an exciting space race to create a fun assessment game that students can play in groups or individually. Students love the friendly competition, and you'll still receive the graded report at the end. With Socrative Pro, you can set a countdown timer or upload your own race icon. You can manage multiple live activities simultaneously in 10 different rooms, create a room for each period, divide the class into smaller groups, or even have a homework room. In addition, you can add rosters and have up to 150 students in each room. With Socrative, visualizing student understanding has never been easier. Sign up today at Socrative.com.
So Kahoot is an online game-based learning platform that allows teachers, organizations, and parents to set up a fun web-based learning for others. This could include your coaches, athletes, or parents. So Kahoot is also a tool that delivers and present questions to students. It is a set up as a game that students can play either individually or groups. Instructors provide students with multiple choice questions which are projected in a classroom screen. So it also lays stress on the analysis of students' performance through evaluation and assessment. It is not a typical traditional kind of assessment process, but through it, Kahoot teacher can evaluate a fun-loving process through quizzes, games, polls, and surveys. So I also prepared here a video on how to use Kahoot app or tool. So, Quizlet is a web tool and mobile app that boosts students' learning through several study tools that include flashcards and game-based quizzes. You can either design your own study sets from scratch or search for pre-made sets to customize and use for your teaching. So, Quizlet helps students prepare for tests. Instead of having to look through notes, fill out worksheets, and create paper flashcards, they can just log in and start studying. On top of that, if your students have mobile device, they can download the Quizlet app to review information anytime, anywhere. So I also prepare here a video on how to use Quizlet app.
Quizlet offers free, simple tools that help you practice and master whatever you're learning. Prepping for a test? Practicing a language? Memorizing recipes? You can learn it all on Quizlet. To start, create a set with the terms you need to learn. Or find an existing set made by someone else. Then, study it with Quizlet's suite of fun activities and games, including flashcards, great for basic review. Learn to focus on what needs work. Test for practice quizzes. And match to compete for high scores. With Quizlet's free mobile apps, you can even study on the go and offline. So supercharge your studying and own your success by getting started on Quizlet today.
D. Quizzes. www.quizzes.com.free. This lets teachers monitor the result of student work as they do it the student progress at your own pace throughout the game. So how to get quizzes for free? Joining the site is completely free. These are actually no paid features on quizzes for K-12 teachers. The only personal information that the instructor needs to provide in order to make a quiz is a valid email address. Is quizzes for free? Do students have to pay to use quizzes? Quizzes is free for students and they do not need to pay to participate in any of the quizzes or lessons or the platform. How do you join a quiz or quizzes? Sign up or log into your active quizzes student account. Click on the quizzes join page and enter the code that is shared by your teacher. Type your name in the name box. Toggle the settings if required. Music, memes, read aloud options, sound effects can be enabled or disabled. There are many variety of games that you can play or test your skill. All you have to do is search the topic that you want to test your skills. Also, you can change your profile name in quizzes. For example, you can make your profile into a cartoon character. Just click the plus button near your name, then pick the avatar that you want. Then, near your name, you see that the plus button changed into an avatar. As for teacher, we can create and make questions. Just type your question and type the exact and 3 different answer in type and answer option. Just check where your answer is, then click done. When you share the link or code to your students, they won't see the real answer. They won't see because it will protect and private by the game quizzes. These are people who like this game test so far. E. Quizalize www.quizzes.com free paid option. It provides the same kinds of quizzes and assessments as other similar tools, but it also lets you track the work of individual students at the granular level. Quizalize, it is where you can engage your class with fun standards, tag quizzes, get instant data on student mastery, automatically differentiated follow-up activities. Now, in this game, you can choose where to log in. These are options in the login section: student login, teacher login, Quizalize games, play a live quiz game in class and Google form. Now, let's try to log in student login section. In student login, there is a code that you need to put at it. So if your teacher send you a code, you can put the code in the box. Type the code here, then join the class. So you can put what kind of curriculum, subject, and grade you want to put up. Or you can search the topic in the box below. You can choose different quizzes, test subject to your students, or create questionnaire in Make a Quiz. What's the purpose of Quizalize? It is a tool for formative assessment that provides a fun and engaging way for teachers to collect real-time data on student progress and easily differentiate learning. It is a platform that implements impactful gamification in the classroom without compromising integrity. F. Flickers. Available at App Store or Google Play, free. This formative assessment tool uses a series of abstract cards that the teacher photographs using a mobile device. The program then analyzes the data and presents the teacher with individualized reports of student success. First, need to sign in. Choose to continue with Google. You need to do this list if you want to create a class. You can also go to create a class to make a question and put choices. What is the purpose of Plickers? Plickers is a free, accessible, and engaged in educational tool used by millions of teachers around the world to assess their students and collect instant results in the classroom. What are the benefits of using Plickers in the classroom? Great lesson begins and proceed with well thought out questions, and Plickers can help teachers revamp, warm up, quick check, and exit tickets while collecting valuable data to help them monitor student progress. Clickers is an assessment tool made by a teacher who was looking for a quick and simple way to check student understanding. This assessment tool allows teachers to collect on-the-spot formative assessment data without the need to have students use devices or paper and pencil. Also, Plickers is a formative assessment that has never been faster. Plickers is the free card activity your students will love. So this is the link how can student access Plickers.
Self-assessment in formative assessment. An increasing trend in formative assessment is self-assessment. Self-assessment is aligned with the principle of learner agency, which means that learning involves the activity and the initiative of the learner more than the inputs that are transmitted to him/her by the teacher. With learning agency are self-regulated learners who engage in self-monitoring and self-evaluation. self-assessment provides students with an opportunity to self-evaluate or making judgments about their learning process and products of the learning, based on criteria that they have agreed with their instructor. So why our self-assessment is a useful tool? So it helps the student to judge their own abilities and performance and become self-regulated learners. And self-assessment skills will help them in their professional careers after they graduated by teaching them to regulate their own performance. So how can instructors support students in self-assessment? As they learn, most students are already informally evaluating their own work and giving themselves feedback. For example, by proofreading an assignment before handling it in and making changes to improve it. Students are assessing their work despite it is important in the learning process. Self-assessment is not a skill that is explicitly taught in the classroom. However, by building self-assessment components more intentionally into the classroom, instructor can encourage and empower students to assess themselves more effectively. Setting goals. Helping to set and clarify effective goals against which student can assess their performance. Providing examples. Providing examples of good performance or setting the standards against which students will assess themselves. Providing criteria. Providing specific criteria to help students generate internal feedback. Giving opportunities. Providing multiple opportunities for the students to assess themselves and thereby help them to close gap between their current performance and the desired performance. Setting goals, providing examples, providing criteria, giving opportunities in formative assessment and self-assessment. So self-assessment can play a dual role for the student to both assess the end product or outcomes of their learning. Example, their knowledge of the course content, a final project, essay, and etc. And also in the process of learning, example, their approaches, strategies, strength, and the areas of improvement. According to Davis and McGowan 2017, so it is the best that the students get actively involved to assess their own learning to determine how they are progressing. This can increase their self-confidence and motivation to learn. Scoring rubrics in formative assessment. In formative assessment, teachers give feedback. These feedbacks are made more specific when they are based on rubrics which enumerate the criteria and describe the expected student performance or the process and the product. The rubric used in formative assessment are analytic and holistic rubrics. For most classroom purposes, analytic rubrics are the best. Focusing on the criteria on one at a time is better for instruction and better for formative assessment because students can see what aspects of their work need what kind of attention. How do teachers use formative assessment? In short, formative assessment is something that teacher asks or do to gather information about student. For example, asking your student to raise their hand if there are any doubts is also a type of formative assessment. This is the example of formative assessment assignment and analysis.
Additional formative assessment strategies. So the first one is the round ribbon charts. So this strategy involves passing charts among the groups to assist understanding. So each group has 4 or 5 students, begins with a chart and some markers. So the group records on an answer to an open-ended question. So they can also share their knowledge they have on a topic covered in the class. So once the students finish with the chart, they can pass it to the next group. So once every group has worked on every chart, responses are discussed as a class. So students should work in the two small groups. So for more information on the group, seeds are forming groups. So all of the students must say something, although it is appropriate to allow students one opportunity to pass on an answering. So for example,
in a small group, there are 3 or 5 students. So your teacher or your instructor pose a problem or a question and have the students to go around the circles quickly sharing their ideas or answers. So this technique is one of the good technique to use for brainstorming or elicit quick responses from your students. So this activity is great if you want to encourage your students brainstorming and allow the students to participate. So no single person can dominate the discussion. So there should be no criticism in answering or giving an answer. So the circle is designed for idea for sharing only. So to allow the students to offer answers for a defined period of time until the students are told to stop by their teacher or by their instructor. So this, just what I said earlier, that this technique is it promotes brainstorming, so the students are encouraged to generate as many responses during an established amount of time. So at the end of the round robin session groups, they can share their answers or their ideas in the class. So the teacher or the instructor can solicit volunteers or randomly call an individual to share the group responses. So the other members of the group can clarify what was said during the round robin session. So to extend the strategy, additional time can be given of the groups to be discussed and clarify the critique. So the ideas from the round robin session, a challenge is making sure that every student is involved in the sharing and that answer and ideas are not criticized while the technique is in process. So it may be helpful for our students to see the process demonstrated in a role play and have the previous experience working in a small groups. The core competences, writing, speaking, and other forms of self-expression. So synthesis and analysis is a problem-solving and a critical thinking, including, where appropriate, the application of reasoning in interpretive methods and quantitative thinking. So collaborative learning and teamwork, and a significant alternative competences for an active learning and design for the appropriate to a specific course. So the next one is the questioning strategies. So this may be used in the individuals, small groups, or the entire class. Effective formative assessment strategies involve asking students to answer well thought out higher order questions such as why and how. So from Frank Pevy, the author of the Strategic Questioning Manual, claimed that this strategy is aimed at facilitating dynamic listening and structured thinking. So the higher order questions require more in-depth thinking from the students. So help the teacher or the instructor discern the level and extent of a student's understanding. So by this strategy is aimed by the facilitating the dynamic listening and structured thinking, just what I said earlier, that is why it can potentially help students to structure their knowledge of a certain topic. So this is the process of the strategic questioning consists of 2 levels. So level 1, describing the issue. Depending on the problem you want your student to focus on, you can ask these questions. So first is the analysis questions. So this aim at identifying the relationship of one of the nation to the other. So the second is the observation question, asking students about their thoughts about a certain situation after they observe it. So the third one is the focus question. So this gather the information that the students already know to analyze the question. So this type is is a great way to check their knowledge or to check the knowledge of your students. So the fourth one is the feeling question. So asking students how they feel about a certain issue or the topic that is affects their feelings. So level number 2, penetrating the subject after asking or more general questions. So it's time to dive in a deeper into the subject. So first is ask a change question. So what is required to make the situation more ideal and which changes are required to achieve this ideal? So the second is consider possible alternatives. So are there any other solutions to a problem? So do they fit the situation better or worse? So think over the obstacles. So what are the possible issues you can come across when implementing each of the possible solutions? So the last one is analyze the consequences. What will be the effects of implementing a certain solution? So a three-way summarize. So three-way summarize, or the TWS, are the unique type of the formative assessment tool in which students work in a group or individually and respond to a question of a topic inquiry by the three different summarize. So 10 to 15 words or 30 to 50 words and 75 to 100 words. So you can also use the 3-2-1 structure to help the students identify the main ideas from supporting the information. So for example, you could ask the students to record 3 of the most important ideas from the lesson or the text. So 2 supporting details for each of these ideas and the 1 questions they have about each of these ideas. So after the students are engaged in a text or a lesson, ask them to list the following in their books. So 3 things that they have learned from the lesson or the text. Excuse me. So second is the 2 questions that they still have and 1 aspect that they have enjoyed. So you can use the students' responses to guide the future lessons and make adjustments to your teaching strategies.
So the next activity is Think, Pair, and Share, or TPS. So what is this activity all about? So Think, Pair, and Share, or TPS is a collaborative learning strategy where students work together to solve a problem or answer a question about an assigned reading. So in this activity, the students are not just being encouraged to answer or think alone or individually. They are also being encouraged to collaborate and cooperate with their other classmates. And in this activity, the students are being taught to involve themselves in a discussion, in a brainstorming, sharing, and in exchanging insightful ideas with each other. And since this is a pair work, therefore they're going to work together as a pair for them to better understand and answer the problem, the question, or the task that was assigned to them. And also because we all know that 2 heads are better than 1. So here is the procedure in conducting this activity. And it is obvious on the name of the activity itself nga naa siya 3 ka parts, which is the think, pair, and share. So first is ang think. The teacher will ask a question. And of course, ang question will be relevant and related sa topic ni teacher. After mag-ask ang question ni teacher, the students will then start to think for their own answer or create their own answer individually. So individual panidaning nga part. And then the student can actually write down their answers para di nila malimtan as well as para dali na nila madumduman. Second step is pair. So, naay freedom si teacher on how he or she will going to pair the students. Either i-pair ba ni teacher katong student nga bright sa student nga di kaayo bright, or i-pair ni teacher katong confident nga student sa student nga grabe ka shy type. As long as maka-create si teacher og effective nga pair where they are going to learn from each other. Third is sharing. So, dani na mag-start og discuss ang pair about silang answers. Mag-exchange og ideas, mag-discuss, and mag-brainstorming. So, you as a teacher can move around to listen sa mga discussion atong pairs. Or pwede nimo kamustahon every pairs about silang findings or ilang answer. And if you feel like ready na ang each pair or mana sila nag-discuss as a pair, you can then allow them or let them share their findings in front of the class. And you can make it actually creative in a way nga pwede i-present sa estudyante ilang findings in a role play, in acting, or through role play, through acting, or through drawing. Aya sila mag-share sa ilang findings. So, this will actually depend on the teacher. So, here is a sample situation or example for us to at least visualize kung unsa yang nahong or unsa siya if ato siyang i-apply sa atong lesson or classroom. So, here, this is a story entitled The Boy Who Cried Wolf. So, kini nga story is about a shepherd boy nga sigig pang-prank sa mga villagers about sa naado ko ni wolf nga mukaon sa ilang sheep. But then, gikapoy na ang villagers sa sigig pang-prank ani ni shepherd boy. Hantod, giabot ang time nga natingnud-an iyang mga pranks. So, nangayo siyag tabang. The question is, tabangan pa ba siya or dili na? So, as you can see, or as you can notice, the story is not complete. So, wala pa siya nag-end. Putol siya ang story. Because, gituin ako na siya because that is the part sa story nga feel na ko kay tricky na siya nga part. So, from there, as a teacher, makakuha ko og different perspectives sa akong students about sa what they think will happen next. Right? So, the teacher can ask or pwede siya mag-formulate of questions like, what do you think will happen next? Will the villagers help and believe the shepherd boy? Why or why not? So, dani nga part, mag-think na kay man nag-ask of questions si teacher. So, si student A to Z will think for their own answer. Again, individual pa sila dani. So, si student A might think that the villagers will no longer believe him since they have been tricked countless times by the shepherd boy. Therefore, they will no longer help and rescue him. Student B might also think that, I think the villagers will be tricked one more time since the boy is so good with acting. So, maglaylay nilang answer ani. And they are going to create their answers individually. So, mag-think sila o nila nga answers ani. Individual pa sila ani na part. Pagabot sa pairing, the teacher will pair all the students in the class. For instance, student A might be paired to student B. Pero again, dili sa tanang panahon nga si student A ma-pair kay student B. Pwede i-pair ni teacher si student A kay student C and si student B kay student D. Again, depende na siya sa strategy ni teacher sa pairing. Or unsa niya pag-pair ang iyang mga estudyante. Next is share. So, you can see here, student A and student B. So, student A, as for me, I really think that. And student B, you have a point. I also do believe that. So, there, mapansin mo nga, they are having a discussion. Nag-discuss sila. Or nag-exchange sila og ideas. And after that, you as a teacher may listen to the ideas of each pair. And if ready na sila, you can ask them to present their ideas as a pair in the class. Pwede po siya in a more creative way. So, for example, student A and B. So, nasa in front of the class, pwede sila mag-ingan nga, our findings or answers regarding to the question is that. So, dana, nag-share na sila sa ilang findings as a pair in front of the class. Next is the advantages of think, pair, and share activity. So, first, it helps students to develop and improve confidence or high self-esteem. Because, sa sharing pa lang apart, you are encouraging the student to be comfortable in sharing their ideas, wherein di dapat sila angay mahadlok or maulaw. They need to be more confident or comfortable in sharing their ideas in the class. So, na hinihinay nga gaka-build ang ilang confidence. Second, foster social and communication skills. Social because pairing man siya na work. So, you are going or the student are going to socialize with his or her partner. Makig-socialize siya kay mag-exchange ba sila og ideas. Next is the communication skills. So, ma-enhance and improve ang communication skills sa estudyante. Ma-enhance ilang speaking skills and listening skills. Speaking skills because again, mag-share sila sa ilang ideas silang classmate. So, in sharing their ideas, they need to speak or they need to talk. Right? So, second, listening skills because not all the time si student A ang mag-share. Di man pwede nga si student A or mag-storya. Need pod mag-contribute ni student B. So, if mag-storya na si student B, student A, maghilom si student A, then, yang paminawon si student B. So, from there, ma-enhance po yung listening skills. Last, each student learns from their partner. So, since mag-exchange man sila og ideas, mag-discuss sila, they're going to share or mag-brainstorm sila, so maka-learn din sila sa ilang partners. Next activity is the 3-2-1 countdown. So what is this activity all about? So 3-2-1 countdown is a strategy provides a structure for students to record their own comprehension and summarize their learning. It also gives teachers the opportunity to identify areas that needs reteaching as well as areas of students' interest. So, in here, sa 3-2-1 countdown, ma-structure gid ang learnings as well as ma-summarize ang learnings sa estudyante because in 3-2-1 countdown, puro ni siya mga statement or questions. And each questions or statement will serve as a guide on how the student is going to answer or what kind of answer ang dapat ihatag sa estudyante. So, from there, na-guide sila as well as na-structure ang ilang learnings. And next, it gives the opportunity sa teacher nga ma-identify ang areas asa dapat i-teach or asa ang area nga interesado ang estudyante. Because it will also serve as a feedback to the teacher. So, in here, the procedure, teachers require students to respond 3 separate statements at the end of the lesson. So, kani siya nga mga statements. So, first step, so, write 3 things you didn't know before. Second step, write 2 things that surprised you about this topic. And third step, write 1 thing you want to start doing with what you've learned. And as you notice, ilang format is 3, 2, 1. And actually, dili na siya fixed nga statement. The teacher can actually formulate another statement. Pwede sila mag-create of other statement or question. As long as nag-follow gyapon sila sa format nga 3, 2, and 1. For example, or sample situation, ang discuss lugar ni teacher kay about volcanoes. So here, 3 things you didn't know before. So possible nga inani ang answer sa estudyante. So, 3 things naman ang gipangayo. So, 3 na pod ang ihatag nga answer sa estudyante. And kanilang answers, based ni sa ilang learnings, yapon sa ilahang kagalingon, nga answer or based or ilang i-evaluate ang ilang learnings. Sa estudyante, ilang evaluate ilang learnings. For example, 3 things you didn't know before. So, mag-reflect sila, self-reflect sila, unsa nga mga things ang wala nila nabawaan before. So here, for example, about man siya sa volcanoes. So it might be nga, I didn't know that lava from volcanoes build new land. Second, I didn't know that more than 80% of the Earth's surface is volcanic in origin. Number 3, I didn't know that there are submarine volcanoes that are located beneath the ocean's surface. Kanina po, 2 things that surprise you about this topic. So, thura ang gipangayo, therefore, duha ra po ang iatag nga answer sa students. So here, I am surprised that there are so-called dormant or sleeping volcanoes, but could awaken in the future. Second, I'm surprised that the molten rock below the surface of the earth that rises in volcanic vents is called as magma. But after it erupts from a volcano, it is called lava. And here, last, ang one. One thing you want to start doing with what you've learned. So, as you can see, istar po nang ipangayo nga answer, therefore, istar po ang ihatag sa estudyante. So, after studying about the hazards of volcanoes, I plan to use what I've learned to myself, especially if we go to volcano tourist areas, as well as inform and raise awareness about volcanoes using what I've learned from this lesson. So, na-notice na to ganiha, nga naka-follow siya sa format nga 3, 2, and 1. So, kung pila ang pangayoon nga answer, maupod ang ihatag nga answer sa estudyante. And, again, dili siya fixed nga inanin lang yun permanent statement. You as a teacher can formulate another statement as long as ga-follow siya sa 3-2-1 nga format. So, these are the advantages of 3-2-1 countdown activity. First, it helps students to summarize and organize their learning. So again, ma-summarize nila yung learnings as well as ma-organize because the statement itself will serve as a guide kung unsaon pag-answer sa estudyante or unsa nga answer ang dapat ihatag sa estudyante. From there, na-structure na ilang answers as well as na-organize na ilang learnings or answers. And second, students are able to reflect and explore their interest in understanding. Reflect in a way nga, for example, katong pangutana nga, what are the 3 things nga wala pa daw niya nahibawan before? So, dito mag-reflect ang student, unsa gani nga mga butang awan ako nabawaan before? Or mag-reflect ang student nga, unsa nga mga butang na-surprise ko ani? So, here she will going to reflect with his or her learnings. And ma-explore niya yung mga interests and understanding. Lastly, teachers are able to adjust their content and pedagogy as well as evaluate students' in-depth understanding. So, nag-ingan mo ganiha nga ang 3-2-1 activity will also serve as a feedback sa estudyante sa teacher. So, the teacher will able to know kung asa ka mabaw or asa nakalahom ang understanding sa estudyante or if nasabtan bigid sa estudyante ang lesson nga iyang gi-discuss or like naabay part sa lesson nga need i-reteach or pwede na siya mag-move sa iyang other na lesson since daghan naman nakasabot. So this will really serve as a feedback to the teacher. Next activity is the 1-minute paper activity. So what is this activity all about? So 1-minute paper activity is a very short in-class writing activity, taking 1 minute or less to complete in response to an instructor posed question, which prompts students to reflect on the day's lesson and provides the instructor with useful feedback. So here, from the name of the activity itself, na 1-minute paper, therefore, tigaan na sila 1 minute to answer the question and i-write na nila sa paper. Actually, this activity also serve as a feedback. So, kaning activity will give the teacher useful feedbacks. And ang 1-minute paper activity, since 1 minute raman siya, so very short lang yun siya nga writing activity sa klase. So here's the procedure. So 1-minute papers are usually done at the end of the day. Student can work individually or in groups here. They must answer a brief question in writing. So, dani 1-minute paper activity, gina-conduct ni siya usually at the end of the lesson. And students can work into groups or individual. And very brief lang yun siya nga writing activity since 1 minute ra may gihatag sa ilaha. And ang question pod, dili gid ingon nga ina nakataas also. Because 1 minute man ang gihatag sa estudyante. So, they're also given 1 minute to answer the question. And the typical questions posed by the teachers kay galibot lang siya centered around main point, most surprising concept, questions not answered, most confusing area of a topic. So here, example nga question. So sa main point, you as a teacher can ask, what did you perceive to be the major purpose or objective of today's class? What do you think was the most important point or central concept communicated during today's presentation? Most surprising concept na pod. So, kung gusto ni mo dani nga part sa most surprising concept, pwede ni mo like question nga, what was the most surprising and or unexpected idea expressed in today's discussion? And looking back at your notes, what would you say was the most stimulating idea discussed in today's class? Next, sa question not answered. So, pwede ni mo sila pangutan. For you, what interesting questions remain unanswered about today's topic? Then, sa most confusing area of a topic. So, what part of the topic confused you the most? What part of the topic you think we should discuss again? And what part of the topic you didn't understand? So, I also added additional questions. So, without looking at your notes, what was the most memorable or stands out in your mind about today's class? In your opinion, what was the most useful idea discussed in today's class? During today's class, what ideas struck you as things you could or should put into practice? What example or illustration cited in today's class could you relate the most? And would you agree or disagree with this statement? Why? What was the most persuasive or convincing argument or counter-argument that you heard expressed in today's discussion? Was there a position taken in today's class that you strongly disagreed with or found to be disturbing and unsettling? What idea expressed in today's class strongly affected or influenced your personal opinions, viewpoints, or values? What relationship did you see between today's topic and other topics previously covered in this course? And what was discussed in class today that seemed to connect with what you are learning or have learned in other courses? So, as you can see and notice sa mga questions, ang mga questions is the students are going to supply answers. Based lang po sa ilang own honest na answer or sa ilang opinion as well as based sa ilang learning. So, sa imong manotice pod sa questions, wala gyud tama or mali nga answer ani. And you can actually tanan nga question nga kang present, you can actually use this especially if magkanda ka og 1 minute paper. So here are the advantages of 1 minute paper. First, it is an effective way of involving all students in class simultaneously. So, ma-involve gid tanan estudyante sa klase. It is because everyone is required to answer the question since it serves as a feedback man pod sa teacher. So, tanan jud dapat mag-answer. And also, mubor man pod ni siya nga writing activity. 1 minute ra. So, tanan jud pwede nga maka-join or tanan jud mag-answer. Second, it ensures equal participation of each and every class member, including anyone who may be too shy or fearful to participate orally. Since kani is writing activity, so dili ra kay maulaw tong estudyante nga kanang gakulbaan if mag-participate siya niya in oral explanation or something to do with oral recitation, oral explanation. So, kani writing activity raman siya. So, dili ra gyud kaayo maulaw ang uban og participate since sulat raman siya. And third, minute papers can promote class attendance and attentiveness. Attendance because actually pwede ni mahimong attendance kaning 1 minute paper nimo. So kung kinsa to nag-answer ani nga activity, so automatic present na siya. And attentiveness because short span of time ra ba ang gihatag sa ila. So they really need to focus and maminaw, and they really need nga kanang ilang attention gyud is naara jud sa imuha since lagi gamay ra nga time ang gihatag sa ilaha. Also, promote class attendance in a way na pwede nimo tigaan ni og points ang 1 minute paper. Like for example, automatic nga ang mag-answer ang 1 minute paper na ay 5 points. So, ang mga student, ganan, bigyan na sila og reward system, ganan sila nga na sila points. So, ganan po sila og eskwela. Because, nag-answer lang guys sila na sila automatic nga 5 points. And ilang answer pa jud, walay tama and walay mali. Because sa 1 minute paper, again, ang mga questions, as you can notice, mura na siya og kanang mura na siya feedback ra sa estudyante sa maestra. So, kung wala gid sila nasabtan, pwede rin nila ibutang natong walay nasabtan. Because, ang bahala na din ana is ang teacher on how he or she will going to handle. Kung, for example, halos tanan mo sa inyong klase, nag-answer nga, wala jud mo kasabot. So, the teacher will going to reteach that lesson and also, i-change po niya yung teaching method para makabalo po siya og adjust sa iyang teaching strategy. So, lastly, teacher can gather multiple perspective and be able to reflect with his teaching methods. So, here, gather multiple perspective because laylay man jud og perspectives ang mga estudyante, and especially kay tanan man involve ani nga activity. So, for example, na 50 ka students and 50 ka students niya individual pa gyud. So, makagather gyud ang teacher laylay nga perspective sa mga estudyante. And sa kung giingon, maka-reflect siya sa iyang teaching methods. Kay lagi it serves as a feedback. Therefore, the teacher mag-reflect pod siya sa iyang teaching method based sa feedback nga iyang nakuha. Like for example, ang feedback niya nga nakuha kay mga negative kaayo, like wala gyud natun-an ang mga estudyante ani nga lesson. Therefore, mag-reflect siya kung asa nga part yang dapat bag-uhon, unsaon niya pag discuss nga this time mahimo na gyung effective.
So now let's proceed to exit or admit tickets. So first is exit tickets. The students write down their takeaways or what they learned that day in a small pieces of paper and submit it to the teacher as they leave the classroom. So this activity is very useful. Aron mabala nato as a future educator as well sa mga educator if atong students nakatuon ba jud ug nakasabot ba gyud. Another one is admit tickets. Our answers to a questions or homework on a past lesson written in a small pieces of paper or cards that students are required to submit as they enter the classroom. So I guess everyone experienced this kind of activity. Usahay mo ni siya, sulat ni siya sa activity notebook or assignment notebook during sa ato ang elementary life, diba? So let's proceed. Creative extension project. So what is this? Teacher asks students to come up with simple project demonstration. First example is create a poster or collage illustrating the subject matter. I-illustrate nila ang ilahang mga natun-an or anything nga unsay lahang isagid kabutang or mahuna-hunaan once nga ay sa ilahang nasabtan according sa discussion. Another one is keynote presentation made by students on the topic. Murag
mura lagi pa siya similarity sa exit tickets, di ba? It depends on the students na lang dayon if unsa nga creativity ang ilahang buhaton para mas mapatsada pa ang ilahang keynote presentations.